A millionaire pays a homeless woman to have a child, but when the baby is born, he's shocked by what he sees. On a brisk autumn afternoon in New York City, as office towers cast long shadows over the bustling sidewalks, a sleek black limousine pulled up outside the Four Seasons Hotel on 57th Street. Out stepped Andrew Whitmore, a reserved but undeniably wealthy man whose face had graced the pages of Forbes. He wasn't there for a meeting or a social event. He carried in his briefcase a contract that would alter his entire future. Across town, in a makeshift shelter beneath a highway overpass, a young homeless woman named Marie Henderson was about to receive the most extraordinary and unsettling proposal of her life. Neither could imagine the shocking revelations that awaited when their agreement finally culminated in the birth of a child. Andrew Whitmore was, by all outward signs, a man who had it all. At 42, he'd made his first fortune trading tech stocks during the dot-com era, then multiplied it through savvy real estate investments in Los Angeles and London. The media often compared him to real-world magnates like Elon Musk or Mark Cuban, but Andrew was more private. He loathed the spotlight, preferring the solitude of boardrooms and country estates to flashy press events. Yet behind the polished suits and measured smiles was a deep ache. Andrew had faced a series of personal tragedies, losing both parents at an early age, and recently discovering he faced certain health issues that could complicate fatherhood. Fearing time was running out to have a child, he'd spent months exploring surrogacy agencies. But the formal procedures, the endless screening, the cold clinical approach, none felt right to him. He craved a simpler route, to find someone in genuine need, someone who would carry his child with heartfelt dedication, not just for money, but for a chance at a better life. It might be naive, but Andrew felt a moral pull toward offering a new beginning to someone desperate. One crisp morning, as Andrew strolled down a Manhattan side street, he glimpsed a line of homeless individuals queued at a local soup kitchen. An idea sparked. Unexpected, even shocking. What if he approached someone who lacked everything, offered them security in exchange for carrying his heir? It was unconventional, borderline scandalous, but Andrew's mind buzzed with the notion. A direct personal agreement, bypassing red tape. He recognized the risk. People might accuse him of exploitation, but to Andrew, if approached respectfully, it could be a mutual lifeline. He'd secure a legacy. The mother would escape dire poverty, and perhaps the child would unite both worlds. The thought consumed him. Over the next few weeks, he quietly visited shelters, scanning for a sign, someone he could trust with this immense responsibility. Marie Henderson had once studied literature at a community college in upstate New York. Life was promising. She had scholarships, a part-time library job, and a dream of teaching. But fate dealt her brutal blows. A family medical emergency drained her funds. Then a devastating fire left her uninsured home in ruins. Her father's passing soon after left her reeling. Within a year, she found herself jobless, near penniless, drifting to New York City in hopes of stable work. Yet the city's hustle quickly crushed her illusions. Unable to secure a decent job or pay steep rents, she wound up on the streets. She slept beneath the scaffolding of an abandoned building, occasionally staying in shelters when space allowed. She rationed stale bagels from soup kitchens, longing for a path out. Some days she felt invisible. On others, she endured catcalls or scornful looks. Marie had a warm heart and fierce intelligence, but desperation left her susceptible to any flicker of opportunity. She often thought, if only I had a chance, some break to lift me from this pit. She'd seen how society closed doors on the homeless, labeling them untrustworthy or mentally ill. Marie fought to maintain her dignity, determined not to sink into hopelessness. She scribbled short stories in a battered notebook, a fragile flame of creativity in the gloom. A crumpled newspaper article about Andrew Whitmore's philanthropic gestures once caught her eye. She heard rumors of wealthy men occasionally offering arrangements to women in dire straits. She never dreamed she'd be entangled in such a proposition. But each day, survival overshadowed everything. She just needed respite from the cold, from the gnawing hunger in her stomach. One fateful afternoon, as she dozed on a bench near a soup kitchen, a man in a tailored overcoat walked by, glancing at her with searching eyes. She half ignored him. Men stared all the time. But this one was different. The next day, he returned, offered her a coffee, and asked if they could talk. Suspicion warred with curiosity. She agreed, not knowing this quiet exchange would rewrite her entire destiny. Andrew's conversation with Marie was awkward at first. They sat on a wrought iron bench outside the soup kitchen. He offered her a fresh sandwich and coffee. Marie, wary, eyed him like so many others who approached the homeless for questionable reasons. But Andrew's voice was gentle, no hint of condescension. He asked about her background, her family. She found herself opening up, describing her lost home, her father's passing. After half an hour, Andrew said, "I want to help you, Marie, but not just with a few dollars. I have a proposition." He paused, measuring his words. "I want a child, an heir. I have reasons I won't go into, but time is short for me. I'd pay you to carry my baby. You'd get a home, financial security, and if you choose, a stable path after the birth." Marie's breath caught. She blinked, half expecting a cruel prank. "What do you mean, pay me to have your child? Like surrogacy?" Andrew nodded, face earnest. "Precisely. Surrogacy, but on a personal agreement. I'd cover all medical living expenses plus a substantial sum for your future. Then if you want, you can remain part of the child's life or not. Your choice." Shock rippled through Marie. This was far beyond anything she'd imagined. Could she do it ethically? Morally? She was 27, relatively healthy. The money could free her from the streets forever. But it felt surreal, like a twisted fairy tale. She asked, "Why me? You barely know me." Andrew sighed. "I've been searching shelters for someone who needs a fresh start. I see in you dignity, intelligence. You're not just looking for a handout. I sense you'd treat this child with care during pregnancy. If you refuse, I understand. But I wanted to ask." Marie's mind spun. The child's father would be a wealthy stranger. She'd be carrying a baby in exchange for money. Some might call it exploitative. Yet the alternative was indefinite homelessness. Something about Andrew's gentle manner suggested sincerity, not lust or harm. Still, she worried. We'd sign a contract? I get enough to build a new life? Andrew nodded. "Yes, I have lawyers. We'll formalize everything so you're protected, receiving monthly stipends, a large final settlement, plus health care. If you accept, we begin medical checks to ensure you can conceive safely." Marie swallowed. Her battered existence overshadowed her doubts. She whispered, "Let me think, but it might be the best chance I'll ever get." Andrew handed her a slip of paper with an address. "Meet me tomorrow at this law office if you decide yes." That night, Marie stared at the city lights from a chilly sidewalk corner. The possibility of escaping hunger, forging a stable future was too overwhelming. She decided, yes, I'll do it. She had nothing to lose and maybe everything to gain. The next day, Marie arrived at a sleek midtown law firm. A polite receptionist led her into a conference room where Andrew and two lawyers awaited. Marie's anxiety soared. She'd never sat at such a fancy table. Andrew rose, greeting her kindly. "Thank you for coming. Are you sure about this?" She nodded quietly. The lead attorney explained the surrogacy-like contract. Marie would conceive via IVF using Andrew's genetic material. She'd receive monthly living expenses of $5,000 plus a final payment of $500,000 upon successful birth. She'd also get a modest condo Andrew owned near Central Park, rent-free for the year. If she wanted more permanent housing afterwards, they could discuss further. Healthcare coverage included top prenatal care, mental health support, and daily essentials. The contract also spelled out disclaimers. The baby would be legally Andrew's, but Marie could have visitation if they both agreed. Marie's eyes misted. The sum was astronomical for someone living on the streets. She scanned the contract's pages, stammering, "I can't believe it's so generous. Are you sure?" Andrew gave a small, sad smile. "I have the means, and I want you to be stable so the pregnancy is safe. We can't have you on the streets stressed. This is best for everyone, especially the baby." Marie swallowed, then signed. Andrew signed too. The attorneys notarized, and with that an unthinkable alliance formed. They parted ways, Andrew instructing her to move into the condo immediately. He'd arranged a driver to pick her up. Marie, in a daze, followed the driver that evening to a modest but clean 2-bedroom condo. She wept on seeing the bed, the stocked fridge. It felt surreal. Over the next weeks, doctors performed medical screenings, found Marie healthy for IVF. The procedure was done quickly with a top fertility specialist. Andrew hovered in the background, supportive but not intrusive. Meanwhile, the outside world remained ignorant of their arrangement. Andrew insisted on total privacy. Marie's pregnancy test turned positive a month later. The doctor confirmed she was pregnant. Andrew's eyes glistened with relief, Marie's with cautious joy. Though an unconventional path, they pressed forward. She settled into a routine, daily checkups, gentle walks around the condo's neighborhood, her belly slowly growing. Yet beneath the surface, destiny brewed a twist no one foresaw, one that would rock them both when the baby finally arrived. Throughout her second and third trimesters, Marie experienced the usual mix of cravings, mood swings, morning sickness. She had a personal nurse available, courtesy of Andrew, who visited weekly. Andrew himself called often, checking on her comfort, sending discreet gifts, fresh fruit baskets, maternity clothing. He insisted she have the best prenatal vitamins, even arranged cooking lessons so she ate balanced meals. Marie found him both caring and guarded. He rarely lingered in her personal space, perhaps to avoid complicating emotional bonds. They both knew this was an arrangement, albeit a gentle one. Still, a strange sense of closeness grew between them. On occasion, Andrew accompanied her to ultrasounds, eyes lighting up hearing the baby's heartbeat. He'd place a tentative hand on her belly, feeling a soft kick and exhale with wonder. For Marie, seeing his excitement brought a bittersweet ache. This child, biologically his, but would it truly belong to her or him? The contract said he'd assume custody. She sometimes wondered if she'd want to remain involved. Andrew left that door open, but they never delved too deeply, focusing on ensuring a healthy baby first. The tabloids had no clue Andrew was engaged in this hush-hush surrogacy with a once homeless woman. Andrew's philanthropic ties had taught him to keep personal matters discreet. Meanwhile, Marie's old homeless acquaintances occasionally texted her. She had a new phone now, marveling at her abrupt disappearance from the streets. She told them she found stable housing, a private arrangement. Some were suspicious or worried for her, but she assured them she was safe. By the 8th month, Marie's belly was quite large. She felt the usual discomfort, but the condo's comfort and Andrew's financial security eased much stress. As her due date neared, Andrew set up a nursery in his penthouse. Soft pastel walls, a crib, plush toys. He read fatherhood books, studied infant care tips. Secretly, he also prepared for the possibility that the baby might have inherited his health complications. The doctors had said it was unlikely, but Andrew worried. As the final weeks approached, neither fully realized the bombshell awaiting them at the birth, a hidden truth that would unravel their entire arrangement and shatter Andrew's assumptions about fatherhood, legacy, and trust. Late one night, just past midnight, Marie felt sharp contractions. She fumbled for her phone, calling Andrew in a panic. Within minutes, he sped across town to her condo, found her trembling with labor pains. They rushed to a private wing of Mount Sinai Hospital in a black SUV, the city lights flashing by in a blur. Andrew's heart pounded. This was the moment he'd yearned for, the culmination of all his hopes and a testament to this unlikely pact. In the labor suite, doctors administered pain relief, guiding her through the process. Hours dragged. Dawn approached. Andrew stayed by her side, letting her squeeze his hand with each contraction. They exchanged few words, but their locked eyes carried a million unspoken thoughts. Relief, fear, excitement. Finally, with one final push, The baby emerged, a lusty wail piercing the sterile air. The nurse held up a small newborn, announcing, "It's a boy." Joy welled in Andrew's eyes. He moved closer, trembling with anticipation, expecting to see his reflection in the baby's features. But as the doctors cleaned the infant, Andrew's face fell, confusion clouding him. The baby's skin tone was unexpectedly different, not a typical variation from mother or father. The hair texture, the complexion, certain facial cues. Somehow they didn't align with Andrew's. Something was off. He stared, speechless. The doctors, preoccupied with postnatal checks, didn't sense his internal storm. But Andrew's mind raced. Is this baby even mine? He tried not to jump to conclusions, but the physical differences were glaring. He felt a swirl of betrayal, heartbreak, confusion. Marie, exhausted from labor, noticed Andrew's stunned expression. She saw the baby, realized the discrepancy. Tears formed, a guilty wave cresting over her. Andrew carefully cradled the infant, eyes searching for a hint of paternal likeness. Instead, he saw features that strongly suggested the father was someone else. The nurse congratulated them, oblivious to the tension crackling. Andrew forced a calm facade, but inside he reeled. Could she have been unfaithful? Did the IVF fail, or was there some mix-up? The future he'd planned, a child carrying his line, suddenly seemed a lie. The hospital staff carried on, handing the baby to Marie for skin to skin. Andrew's heart hammered, unsure what to do. As if reading his thoughts, Marie burst into sobs, repeating, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry." The entire arrangement threatened to unravel in an instant. In the hushed postpartum suite, Andrew demanded an explanation. The baby rested in a bassinet, dozing. Marie, tears streaking her face, stammered through exhaustion. She admitted a devastating truth. The IVF procedure might not have been fully controlling her fertility. I was involved with someone briefly, just before. It was a slip. I never expected to conceive that way. I thought the IVF would overshadow any possibility of my own fertilization. I realize how naive that is. She sobbed. But I swear, Andrew, I thought the baby was yours. I didn't lie intentionally. I only discovered I was pregnant a bit earlier than expected, but the doctor said it was normal. I never told them about the unprotected encounter because I'd already signed the contract. I was terrified you'd cast me out if you knew. So I kept silent, hoping it was your child all along. Andrew's mind reeled. The entire surrogacy hinged on the IVF making him the father. Instead, some unknown man might be the baby's father. All that money, the condo, the plan. Was it wasted on a child not even mine? He felt anger swirl. Could the clinic have bungled the procedure? Or was it purely that she'd conceived the old-fashioned way right before or around the IVF date? Marie pleaded, "I didn't want to lose the chance for a stable life. I planned to raise him with you if you'd let me. I messed up. I had nowhere else to turn. Please forgive me." Andrew's chest felt tight. He recognized she was also a victim of her own desperation, but he also felt deeply betrayed. This was never about forging a romantic relationship, but we had an agreement. Now you drop this bombshell, this child might not be mine at all. She nodded, tears flowing. "Yes, I'm sorry. If you want me to leave, I will. You owe me nothing. It was my fault." Andrew closed his eyes. The vow to build a legacy was undone. Yet, he still cared about Marie's well-being. She'd carried this baby for 9 months, believing a half-truth. Could they do a DNA test to confirm paternity? Of course, that was the next step. Within a day, Andrew arranged for an urgent paternity test. The hospital's lab took the baby's swab and Andrew's sample, promising results within a couple of days. Meanwhile, Marie recovered from childbirth in a swirl of guilt and anxiety. Andrew covered her hospital suite costs, not wanting to abandon her, but he also kept emotional distance. News of the baby's birth remained hidden from the press. Andrew didn't want rumors swirling about a paternity scandal. His attorneys recommended he wait for test results before making decisions about Marie's final payout. The contract was explicit. The final $500,000 was contingent on the child being biologically his. If it wasn't, the contract was void. Marie might lose everything. She lay in bed, the baby sleeping in a nearby bassinet, each day uncertain. She dreaded the results, but also prayed for a miracle that the baby was Andrew's. She'd grown attached to this unborn child for months, only now realizing the father might be another man from her fleeting liaison. That man was a homeless friend, a kind drifter named Carlos. He vanished from the shelter scene weeks after they parted ways. She had no way to find him. Andrew visited occasionally, not holding the baby. He asked politely about her health. She saw the heartbreak in his eyes. He'd wanted fatherhood so badly. She apologized again. He mostly nodded, refusing to lash out, but the tension was palpable. Their entire relationship felt precarious, built on hope that collapsed with the child's first cry. Finally, on the third day, the lab's envelope arrived. Andrew opened it alone in a hospital conference room. The test confirmed, 0% paternal match. The baby boy was not Andrew's. He sank into a chair, absorbing the final blow. Now he faced a choice: cut Marie off entirely, or still provide some help. Contractually, he owed her nothing if the child wasn't his. The attorneys suggested disclaiming any paternal rights or financial obligations. The emotional cost was huge. He'd pinned so many dreams on fatherhood. Anger and sorrow warred in him, but part of him empathized with Marie's predicament. Andrew returned to Marie's hospital room, test results in hand. She saw his somber expression and realized the verdict. The baby wasn't his. Tears rolled down her cheeks, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Andrew. I never meant to trick you. I truly believed at times it might be yours. But the timing, my stupidity. Please forgive me." Andrew exhaled, sorrow shadowing his face. "Marie, you broke my trust. I wanted a child of my own. This was a big step for me. Now, that dream is shattered." He paused, watching her cradle the baby. The infant stirred, letting out a soft whimper. Something tugged at Andrew's heart. He might not be the biological father, but he felt a strange tenderness. He'd anticipated this baby for months, even felt its prenatal kicks. He continued quietly. "Legally, I owe you nothing now. The contract is void, but I'm not a monster. You risked your health carrying a baby you believed was mine. I can't leave you in the cold." Marie's eyes widened in relief. You mean you'll still help me?" Andrew hesitated. "Yes. Not the full $500,000, but I'll ensure you have resources. Enough to keep a roof over your head, raise the baby if you choose, or find a fresh start. Let's figure out a fair sum." Marie's gratitude overflowed. She wept, whispering thanks repeatedly. They agreed Andrew would give her a lump sum of $100,000 plus a year's rent in a modest apartment. She'd also get a small monthly stipend for child expenses for up to 2 years. In return, she'd disclaim any further claims against him. She realized it was far less than the original contract, but infinitely more than she had. She felt ashamed yet grateful. Andrew arranged a short naming ceremony of sorts, buying newborn essentials. He told Marie, "Name him as you wish. I'll stand aside. But if you ever need fatherly advice or help, you can call me." She appreciated the offer. Even though the child wasn't his, Andrew's kindness showed a paternal spirit she admired. Within days, mother and child left the hospital for a small, furnished apartment Andrew secured. The media remained oblivious to the near scandal. Andrew refused to publicize it, wanting the baby's life private. Despite the heartbreak, he found solace in having done the compassionate thing. For Marie, it was a miracle. Her once hopeless existence replaced by a stable home, a new baby, and a second chance. She vowed to honor that trust, forging a better path for her little boy. Several years passed. Andrew eventually pursued official surrogacy properly, fathering a daughter with a professional surrogate. He found joy in parenthood, seeing his child grow. Meanwhile, his philanthropic endeavors expanded, but the memory of that earlier fiasco lingered as a cautionary tale. He never again tried an ad hoc arrangement. He recognized the vital need for clarity and honesty in such deeply personal matters. Marie used Andrew's financial support to earn an online degree, eventually landing a stable job at a nonprofit that assisted single mothers. Her son, Jeremiah, thrived. A curious, bright boy with a love for books and building blocks. Though not Andrew's by blood, the child occasionally asked about Mr. Andrew, that kind benefactor who'd visited early on. Marie recounted the story gently, mindful that the details were complicated. She never concealed the truth that a man named Andrew had tried to be his father, but discovered they weren't related. Jeremiah found it perplexing yet fascinating. One day, Andrew was in town for a charitable event supporting single mothers. By coincidence, Marie's nonprofit was a partner. Their paths crossed in a corridor of a community center. Spotting each other was surreal. Marie, older, more confident, hugging a lively 7-year-old by her side. Andrew recognized the boy's bright eyes, though they no longer sparked the heartbreak from years before. He approached, stooping down with a gentle smile. "You must be Jeremiah," he said softly. The child nodded shyly, glancing at his mother. Andrew rose, turning to Marie. "How have you been?" She grinned, tears brimming. "I'm good. Raising him. All thanks to your help. He's in 2nd grade now." Andrew nodded, warmth in his gaze. "I'm happy for you both. If you ever need anything, I'm still here." In that fleeting moment, the painful past found a gentle closure. They parted amicably. Andrew returning to his philanthropic life, Marie continuing her dedicated work. While the baby from that arrangement wasn't Andrew's child, the entire ordeal shaped both their futures in profound ways. Their bond, forged from a bizarre surrogacy attempt and a devastating revelation, ended up fostering renewed empathy and hope. In the end, Andrew Whitmore's desperate bid for fatherhood collided with Marie Henderson's struggle for survival in an unthinkable arrangement, only for them to discover a deeper lesson beneath heartbreak. When the baby was born not as Andrew's biological child, both were forced to confront betrayal, guilt, and shattered expectations. Yet from this emotional wreckage rose an unexpected grace. Andrew still offered Marie a fresh start and the child a stable home, even though his own fatherhood dreams slipped away. Today, Andrew raises a daughter through a legitimate surrogacy, while Marie thrives with a stable job, raising her son in safety. Their once desperate contract stands as a testament that empathy, even in the face of deception, can lead to growth and healing for all involved. If this powerful, twist-filled story moved you, please like, share with others, and subscribe to our channel. Every view helps us continue spotlighting real-life moral dilemmas and dramatic turning points that reveal the unwavering resilience of the human spirit.